Hello, everyone. Inside today's Locked On Canadiens, it is Waiver Wire Wild Tuesday, apparently, here in Montreal. Lots of waiver news, lots of final roster decisions, and the Laval Rocket have also been in the news. All that and more inside today's show.
You are Locked On Canadiens, your daily podcast on the Montreal Canadiens. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 929 of Locked On Canadiens. We are, of course, your daily Montreal Canadiens podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where you get your team every single day of the week. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. And as always, remember, you can find Locked On Canadiens wherever you get your daily podcast, Google, Apple, Spotify, or if you are watching us on YouTube, thank you so much. We topped our 3,000 subscriber goal. We are in the process of figuring out the timing for, well, we haven't announced what we're going to do yet, but I'm sure all of you can guess what it will be at this point. But you're not here to hear me talk about how I'm going to suffer. You want to know who the hell I am, and I am Scott Matla. I am one of your hosts, and I am joined once again by my co-host, the Active Stick, Laura Saba. And Laura, it is a cold, rainy fall Monday here in Buffalo, which is great because I'm going to go put a heavy blanket on, put Monday Night Football on TV, and maybe have a spot of coffee or something on the couch tonight. How are you doing on this lovely Monday night?
Well, I did want to thank you, Scott, for taking the solo episode yesterday so that I could have some time with my family for Canadian Thanksgiving. We have very, very busy lives. We both have extremely demanding day jobs and we have families and things like that. So I'm always grateful when people are understanding about, everything. Like, we're always here for each other. And I'm so glad that you were there to do the solo episode and you did a great job.
Yeah, and speak of the devil, like, things happened in the middle of that, which we will get to tying into that in our second segment. But first, the Canadiens made their final cuts in camp today. Defenseman Mattias Norlinder and forward Emil Heineman were assigned to the Laval Rocket today. And Heineman didn't surprise me as much. I thought he did a good preseason, but I'd like to see him kind of get more reps at the AHL level. And I think he's a really fun add to that team. And he's familiar with a lot of the players on there, thanks to his time at the end of last season and the AHL Calder Cup playoffs last year as well. I'm a little disappointed Mattias Norlinder is the one who went down. I thought he had done everything in his power to have earned that final defensive spot over Justin Barron, but they being the Montreal Canadiens, opted to keep Justin Barron at the NHL level. I believe Christian Dvorak was transferred to long-term injured reserve. Carey Price obviously is on IR as it is. And Laura, I got to ask, what are your thoughts on Norlinder being the final defensive cut versus Justin Barron after this preseason?
Honestly, I was a little bit disappointed. I kind of understood why the Canadiens trust Barron more. And I also understand why they would send Norlinder down. But for me, this was how many other chances is Norlinder going to get this year, right? Like, it seems to me that their leash is a little bit shorter with him. And I did want him to have that opportunity to play in a now situation, right? The number of times that he played in the NHL in the past, those handful of games weren't very promising, but he's come such a long way. And I don't think this is a setback. Like, I do think that he's going to get more responsibility in Laval. It's somewhere where he's comfortable, blah, blah, blah. But I would have liked him to have the opportunity. But I understand why, bigger picture, they kind of just trust Barron more. Personally, for me, like, based on the camps, like, I think it should have been Norlinder. Just, there was always the option to send him down later.
And that's the thing is, like, you can send Justin Barron down and maybe, he gets it together at the start of the camp there. Maybe he doesn't. Who knows? It's hard to say just because he started so slowly last year and then ended up having a pretty good AHL season, got called up, had a decent NHL season. I just look at the way this preseason went, and Norlinder was more confident, more direct in what he was doing with the puck on his stick. And that can't be understated for things, is that he was assertive. Yeah, there are mistakes there, but he is choosing to do things that, better the team. And I look at the last game against Ottawa, and Justin Barron had mistakes. He, has to clear the puck and he threw it towards the bench, resulted in too many men on the ice penalty, just kind of missed assignments a little bit. And I like Justin Barron. I do. I really like Justin Barron as a defenseman. I think that there's a talented player there. It's just, I look at what they did with Armia and Lindstrom and some of the other veterans and everything this offseason, that effort and results do have an impact on what this franchise is doing going forward here. Kent Hughes made it very clear is that if you haven't won your spot, we're going to send you down. I would have kept Norlinder. I don't think he'll be far off from a recall now, and I will have to amend my call-up list, and I will have him ahead of William Trudeau at this point, not for anything that Trudeau has done wrong, but just because Norlinder's preseason was so strong. And I'm also curious, what happens this first week of the season? Who's still nursing injuries? Who's going to magically have cap space? What's going to happen here? And I'm intrigued to see, because Laval has a lot of defensemen, and we'll have more on that in our next segment too. It's just, I really wish he had made it because he earned it, not just because I'm staking my, flag on still being a Norlinder fan, but like he earned that spot there. And before we didn't forget Emil Heineman. It's just numbers game. I thought Jesse Ylönen played very well. Rafael Harvey-Pinard played very well. Michael Pezzetta is the ideal 13th forward on any team there, and they're stacked down the middle. Stacked, but they have centers down the middle there. Not that Heineman is a center, but there's not a lot of room for him. And you don't want to have a guy like that, or Ylönen or Harvey-Pinard as your 13th forward, because they bring a lot to the table in this. I think he's going to be really good with the Rocket, and I also think he won't be far off from. So it makes sense that Heineman is the one that they are sending down now, and that call-up list he'll be at the top of that again. I think he's right on the cusp of being that guy that can play right in the middle six role, but he also showed some improved physicality that I think, endeared him to a lot more people. He knocked Zach McEwen out of that Ottawa Senators game, and that was not something I saw last year in the AHL with him. He wasn't an overly physical guy. Adding a little bit of that nasty edge is going to serve him pretty well. What are your thoughts on Heineman being the last forward cut from camp here, Laura?
I thought that was a sign. The Canadiens, obviously, it's not, I mean, I know they have faith in him, right? Like, they traded for him. Like, he was a piece that they wanted from Calgary at that time. It seems to me that they're willing to give him as many looks as possible. And like you said, like, he did earn the chance to stick around as long as he did, right? Like that, like it was in his hands. Like his game developed, or he demonstrated to us an additional dimension to his game, right? And we don't know what conversations were had at the end of last season. We don't know if he was told to, like, play the body a little bit more or not. But it was clear that when he came back, he was determined to show something different, to show something more. And the Canadiens, to this point, have given him every indication that he's in their plans, right? Like, so he's like riding on that confidence. And I think it's really positive, but at the same time, there was always going to be an odd one out. And there are some players where you would rather they get more minutes. You would rather they get tougher competition as opposed to just being a 13th guy.
And that's exactly it. Is Heineman, like Norlinder and Barron, I think as seventh defenseman would have been fine interchangeably on this team. It's more of a personal thing. And again, I like Justin Barron. I just don't think his preseason earned it based on, I don't even know if I'm using the word meritocracy correctly here, but Heineman is going to be here before long. And I also look at the way this team is set up right now, that Harvey-Pinard and Ylönen are playing on the fourth line. There's not a lot of space there. And for a player who is still developing their next level game there, maybe giving them a little bit of time in the AHL is not the worst thing in the world. The Rocket are going to be stacked. And because Norlinder and Heineman weren't the only two players assigned to the Rocket as of today, we're going to get into more waiver wire news coming up in our next segment. But first, it's so hard to find tickets for things nowadays. Like, I live in Buffalo. Trying to buy Bills tickets this season has been an absolute nightmare. And you shouldn't have to worry about buying tickets to your next big event. And with killer last minute deals, all in prices, views from your seat in the app, and their best price guarantee, Game Time is going to take all the guesswork out of buying tickets. If you need them last minute, they're flash deals, zone deals, easy to find and buy tickets for any kind of event in your area. You can check out what your seats are going to look like, what it's going to be there. You don't want to miss out on this. So download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL to get $20 off your first purchase. Some terms apply. And again, just create an account at the Game Time app. Use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Game Time, download Game Time today. Last minute ticket deals, lowest price guaranteed. We are back here at Locked On Canadiens, and we are locked on the waiver wire because the Canadiens assigned Norlinder and Heineman to the AHL today. They do not have to. I'm sorry if my old high school English teacher is listening to this podcast. My language is not normally this abhorrent in either of the two languages I barely speak. They cleared because they are not eligible for waivers. Or not, they are waiver exempt, I think is the proper term there. Before anyone starts yelling at me in the comments, it's been a long day. We just had to change a kitten's crate out. Doesn't matter right now. Also clearing waivers today. And the big news from Sunday's show, in which I slowly lost my mind in the middle of recording, both Joel Armia and Gustav Lindstrom cleared waivers today. They are assigned to the Laval Rocket, which, boy, I don't know where anybody fits anymore, because Joel Armia in the AHL should be way too good, way too strong, way too good at shooting the puck really, really hard on net. And Gustav Lindstrom is just guy. He is your top pairing minutes eating defenseman, maybe. Like, I don't know. Am I being too mean, Laura? What are our expectations of both players there?
When you say you're being too mean, do you think you're being too mean to Joel Armia? You said Joel Armia is too good for the AHL, which is true. That's absolutely true. But at the same time, Lindstrom, honestly, like, to me, like, I don't think I ever even noticed him in Detroit. You know what I mean? Like, I never noticed that guy. So I don't think you're being too mean. I just, poor guy. But, like, I mean, he plays hockey better than I do.
Yeah, and well, here's the thing is, we can't compare players who are going to be playing professional hockey to be like, oh, they play better than us. I would hope so. I was a wrestler in high school. I hope you play hockey better than I do. I can't skate backwards. I stand in front of the net in men's league and hope that pucks hit me and go in. Like, it's.
But you know what I mean, right? Like
Yeah.
I can't really criticize his game because it's not like terrible or anything like that. It's just like it's not what we need.
And that's the thing about Joel Armia, and I think it was, and I'm forgetting his name. We've had him on. It was Wave Intel who put on Twitter is that we as a fan base are very hard on players. Joel Armia is a perfectly cromulent NHL player that if he weren't making the contract that he was making right now, we would not care. If he was getting paid, $1.1 million right now, would anybody give a crap? And I don't think the answer is yes. That if he was the 13th forward making $1.1 million, who the hell cares? Or he would have been traded by now. But the fact is he's not. And the current GM did not offer him that contract, nor do I think he would have. And I'm not going to fault Joel Armia for taking the contract. If you're going to get paid, secure the bag, baby. Like, always secure the bag, because hockey can end in an instant there. I'm just very curious where he fits into the Rocket lineup, which has scored a lot of goals in the preseason so far. They put up 5 on Belleville. They kick off their season, I believe, this Friday and Saturday. And they're a team with a good mix of veterans, which we will touch on in our next segment, that I don't know where Joel Armia fits. And I don't think the Canadiens will be like, just stay home, don't play hockey. I don't think they would do that. But I do wonder if now that he is in the AHL and he can be transferred from AHL team to AHL team in trades, he is cleared, obviously, waiver. So he doesn't have to be waived again unless he is there for 30 days or 10 games and plays in those. I'm wondering if, with them having cleared waivers now, if there isn't, Kent Hughes takes that last salary retention spot, maybe takes a little bit off of Armia's contract and just gets rid of it. retains 33% or something like that and just gets that contract off the books and out the door. Because any team could take him and be like, oh, we'll stash him on our AHL roster for right now, and then we can promote him to the NHL when we're ready here. Lindstrom, it wouldn't surprise me if they just hold on to him. He's the perfect guy to call up, send down, call up, send down, call up, send down. You don't care if he plays 7 minutes a night. You're not hurting either side too much in one direction. Am I just kind of having wishful thinking here, Laura, or could they actually manage to trade Joel Armia now that he's in the AHL?
I don't think they trade him unless they retain salary, to be honest. And you can't, I think there's a maximum of, is it $1.3 million that can be buried in the minors from his salary, if I'm not mistaken. So either way, they would need to retain some salary to make it even tempting. But it's possible. I think for me, any team, whether he's in the NHL or AHL, would have wanted the Canadiens to retain some salary. I think the Canadiens just have to be careful because they only have one salary retention spot.
So, and I'm actually now looking at, this comes from Anthony Marcotte, who is trying to put together his best guess at an AHL lineup here. Top line is Heineman, Philippe Maillet, Joshua Waugh. Second line is Sean Farrell, Brandon Gignac, Lias Anderson. Third line, Xavier Simoneau, Mitchell Stevens, Joel Armia. Fourth line, Jared Davidson, Lucas Condata, Gabriel Bourque, with extras being Nathan Legare, Riley Kidney, Jan Mishak, Riley McKay, and John Parker Jones. That's a very, very good lineup without Armia in there, where there is a legitimate top prospect in Riley Kidney not even in the lineup. He does say that it is extremely hard to make a choice out of this. And then on defense, Toby Paquette-Bisson, Logan Mailloux, I almost called him Justin Trudeau, William Trudeau, Gustav Lindstrom, Jaden Struble, Mattias Norlinder, with Nicolas Baudin, Brady Keeper, Oliver Gallipo as your backups. The whole point out of this is that there is depth around there. Some of these guys are going to go to the ECHL, and the ECHL has already gotten a good influx of prospects from the Rocket at this point. Guys like Miguel Troini, Christopher Mazier Ortiz, other players like that. Ty Smolanek signed an ECHL contract today with them. I'm wondering that if Kent Hughes is not just working the phones to do whatever he can, they're not just to help out and keep those spots open for prospects, but also to do right by the player. Like Joel Armia's got a family. He went through long COVID and some other stuff in the last couple of years. That's been very difficult. And the last thing you want to do at that point is ride the bus in the AHL. And we've seen that Kent Hughes is willing to do right by players and their families. So I can't help but think that something else is just cooking in there. And I hope we get an end to it soon, just because it does feel like we've kind of worn this out at this point. Like I don't want to bully Joel Armia anymore. It doesn't feel right to need to do that anymore.
I think, honestly, for me, it's such a tough situation because if you were Joel Armia, how could you say no to the contract you were signed to by Marc Bergevin a few years ago, right? That was a big thing. And it's not like he could predict that he was going to have these health issues that, for better or for worse, seem to have affected his game. And there are lots of people that keep pointing out, he used to be a beast before. And yes, that's fair. He was never like a top line player, or he was never meant to be a top line player, even though he might have been played on the top line. But he was a beast. Like when he was good at what was demanded of him, but that was not worth the price tag that he ended up signing at. And I think that's the biggest thing, is that if you're a player, how do you say no to that contract? How do you say no to that kind of financial security, which then puts you in this position? Like, I'm sure at the time he had every intention of being worth that contract, but things happen, and maybe he was just never as good as that amount of money. It's not, it's just, to me, like, it's such an impossible situation. So I think for me, the Canadiens should be as kind as they possibly can to him.
And we will see what happens. The Rocket season kicks off on Friday against Abbotsford. I will obviously be covering that for Eyes on the Prize, in addition to other things. But we are not done talking about the Laval Rocket yet. We have one more segment coming up. They've named a new captain and alternates, and all that is coming up in our final segment. But first, today's show is also brought to you by our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook. If you want to snap into the NFL action right now, FanDuel is your ideal partner for this, because you can get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you sign up as a new customer. When you place a $5 bet, that's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. And if you're thinking about joining, there's no better time. You can bet on the spread, player props, over-unders, everything on an app that is safe, secure, and easy to use. And when you win, you can get paid out instantly. Maybe go buy some more chicken wings like I would love to do. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL and us here at Locked On. And as always, please remember to gamble responsibly. We're going to wrap the show here in our final segment, and the Rocket are just all over the news today for the Montreal Canadiens, which is a good thing because they are loaded. They are stacked to the gills. And you know what? I am all about that. They've made the playoffs 2 years in a row, and the expectations are sky high this season, I think. You have a lot of returning veterans, and you have arguably the deepest prospect group that I think the Canadiens AHL affiliate has seen in a long time, since I think Carey Price and like PK Subban, et cetera, were down in the AHL. That's how long it has been. They named their new leadership core for this season with Gabriel Bourque wearing the C officially as the 4th full-time captain in Laval Rocket history. He wore the C last year after Alex Belzile was called up and remained in the NHL for most of the season. Unofficially as captain, he was officially named captain today. Wearing the A's are Toby Paquette-Bisson, who comes back after a year in LA with the Ontario Reign and a little bit at the NHL level. Lucas Condata and Mitchell Stevens will also wear A's for the Rocket. And my biggest thing with this group is I look at the 4 players they have wearing letters for this team at any given time. Every single one of them was either a part of that deep run to the Eastern Conference Finals 2 years ago or was a big part of that push last year to get into the playoffs, even though they lost in the play-in round, or both in the case of they are establishing a good, strong veteran identity and leadership on this team. Brady Keeper has been around for a while. Nicolas Baudin is back again. You have guys like Philippe Maillet and Elias Anderson who are still a little bit younger, but have that veteran experience. And then they are just stacked up with prospects. Simoneau, Davidson, Mishak, Kidney, Joshua Waugh. You're going to have Norlinder back down there. You're going to have guys like Jaden Struble and Logan Mailloux. You have young players in net with Strauss-Mann and Jakob Dobish, potentially Caden Primo. Again, it's hard for me to not name or not love what I'm seeing from the Rocket here. And it's an organizational philosophy is that they've looked at what happened last year, depth issues, lacking some players here or there. All 3 levels here seem to have just stacked cupboards of options if things go awry. And it is really heartwarming to see that the Canadiens are putting such a strong emphasis on getting their minor league teams in order as well.
I think one thing that is so important to the Canadiens at this point, and what I'm seeing from what they're trying to do throughout the organization, is the idea of leadership. And leadership is not just who gets a letter slapped on their jersey. Leadership is a series of behaviors. It's a series of attitudes. It's a series like your skills might not be superstar level at hockey, but your intangibles, which is a word that like gets made fun of nowadays, like as people look more and more towards things like analytics and hard data and things like that. But like there has to be something in you that other players can emulate. And I feel like one thing the Canadiens are really, really focused on is that who are their leaders? And it doesn't really matter how many goals you scored. It matters more just what you're bringing to the rink night in and night out, whether you're able to motivate, whether you're able to speak up even for your teammates if there's something wrong. Like, I think the biggest thing for me that I'm seeing is that they've got this type of person in mind, and then they want other players to be like that. Like, for example, you look at who they put Logan Mailloux with, right? Like they make him hang out with Nick Suzuki. He was living with Paul Byron. It's just like things like that where like players who either make the NHL or players who get called up or prospects who are around the city, there's certain people that they want them to be as close to as possible, right? And for me, like this is basically what I'm seeing. And you have to start that from the AHL level, or you have to start that from as low a level as you possibly can reach, right? But You have to have that in your AHL team before any of these players make that NHL roster. They have to already have those behaviors, skills, like attitudes ingrained in them.
And I think that's the biggest thing is good habits and systems and foundations, or whatever the hell you want to say, start, some people it starts, youth, going into junior, going into college, whatever. And some players, are just, they don't get that until they hit the professional level. And that it is, can you learn good habits? Can you learn to be a part of this team? Can you learn to be more than just yourself? And that's the thing is, the Rocket have done a really good job dating back to when Joel Bouchard was here, who's now coaching the Syracuse Crunch, etc. It is, you see a lot of guys that are pulling in the same direction. It's not individualistic things. Yeah, there are great moments of brilliance, don't get me wrong, but Jean-Francois Houle has done such a strong job molding a team identity that they understand the system. They understand taking care of your teammates and doing the little things right that help you win hockey games. And then you take that to that next level. Even guys coming up from the ECHL, you go to the AHL, you learn that, and you keep improving on those habits. Guys that we saw coming into camp last year and then go back to college and continue to just shine. Sean Farrell, et cetera, Lane Hudson going back to college next year too, or this year, I should say. There's so much that they're learning here, and it's how you build a strong franchise. Tampa Bay did it for a while in their heyday, in that they had young guys. They instilled this system in them. They could come up, plug them into the NHL lineup, and just keep going. Toronto did this for a while. Obviously, their core's a little bit thinner now in terms of the AHL stuff, but it is so good to see. And I love that they went with an all veteran leadership group, with no disrespect to guys like William Trudeau, who I think could have worn a letter for the team this year. Someone like Brandon Gignac, et cetera. They have more than just this group here who can step up and be a leader. They're wearing the letters, but everyone is responsible to their teammates, and they're held to that accountability, stars or not. And that's a good sign for the Canadiens going forward. If they are able to build these good habits and efforts and everything at the next level down, starting with the captain all the way to the fourth line, 13th forward, whatever, you're in for good news here. And I think the Canadiens are happy with what they're seeing. As Laura and I always say, if you haven't been to Place Bell for a game, go. The Rocket are going to be a lot of fun this year. You can see a lot of top prospects. So you can tell us about, who did you see at the games there? What did you like? What did you not like? You can always tweet us at LO_Canadiens on Twitter, at Scott Matla, or at The Active Stick. Longer emails, questions, concerns, mailbag questions, whatever, LockedOnCanadiens@gmail.com. You can find us wherever you get your daily podcasts, Google, Apple, Spotify, or if you are watching us right now on YouTube.com. Subscribe, tell all your friends. We will announce what horrific thing I am eating next in the next little bit here, I promise. Well, we'll be back tomorrow. We have a game preview, an actual game preview to talk about when the Habs take on the Leafs on opening night for the Canadiens on Wednesday night. But until then, we will see you all next time.